So welcome. Thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. I'd like to call this special meeting of the RTM Education meeting to order. It is Monday, December 15th, 2025. It is 7:31 p.m. And again, welcome. This is our first meeting of the official calendar for 2025-2026 for the RTM Education Committee. And a huge thank you to Dr. Eric Byrne for being here. We're all so happy. We're delighted that you have made the time to be here tonight. Thank you.
This is exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. We do, because this meeting was put on the books with less than 30 days notice, this is a special meeting and we must therefore stick to the agenda as it's written. And so I'm going to quickly go through the first action item to approve minutes, and then we'll do an introduction of all of our members. So I'm just going to make a motion to approve minutes from the September 29th, 2025 meeting. And I know that there were at least 3 of us in the room who were not at that meeting. So if you haven't looked at the notes, you can feel free to abstain. But all those in favor of approving the September 29th meetings, please raise your hands. Do you have it? Okay, that looks like everyone.
Yes, who was there?
Who was there? And also I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 18th, 2025 meeting. That was the joint remote meeting that we had with Finance and Budget, where we talked about the teacher's contract.
So moved.
Yeah, okay, so Jan, second. All those in favor?
Favor.
Okay. Stephanie,
And to confirm, that meeting was pre this new session, right?
Stephanie, do you have a chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Dr. Byrne.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Okay, minutes done. All right, I would like for, if we could quickly just go around and introduce ourselves to Dr. Byrne. I think we have 11 sort of seasoned members, and we have 3 brand new members to the committee. And if a minute and do that, I don't know, Dustin, do you want to start?
Sure. Dustin Gordon, 23 Ridgeview Avenue, part of Oxbridge community. I have a 3rd grader and then a future Oxbridger.
I'm Ashley Guadagno. I have 2 kids at Holmes, 1st and 3rd grade, and I'm also the vice chair and PTO there.
I'm Karen McNichol. 2 of my 3 children graduated from the high school many years ago, and I suppose I'm one of the seasoned members.
And an ex-teacher, right?
Well, I still teach actually.
Oh,
But, yeah.
my apologies.
No. Time is up, but maybe.
Hi, Curtis Butler. We have 2 daughters in high school. Charlotte, who is kind of not following the normal track on the special education side. She's 20 years old. And her sister Claire, who's a junior and killing it in high school. And I've been on this committee for quite a long time.
I would imagine they might have enjoyed sleeping in today a little bit.
Yes, and so much so that alarms didn't go off when they were supposed to. Rushing to the school. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'm Ann King. I've had 2 daughters go through the Darien school system, and I've been on the RTM for 3 years.
And I'm Jan Newman, and I'm a graduate of Darien High School, as are both of my children. And I have 2 grandchildren who were in the system for a while, but are not in the system now.
I'm Mary Neva Gautier. I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Tokenique. This is my 5th year on the committee, and I'm also currently vice chair of the Tokenique PTO.
Liza Lucas, I have 5 kids and enjoyed the snow day today, so thank you.
Leslie, can you speak up a little?
What's that?
Yeah, speak up a little.
Oh, of course.
Eric Byrne, your new superintendent. I live in Norwalk. I have a 26-year-old who went through the public school system in Bedford and Chappaqua over in New York. My wife is also an educator. We met teaching many years ago, and it's great being here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Jessica Cahill. I introduced myself earlier. I'm also a proud graduate of Darien High School. I have 4 kids, only 2 are at the school right now at Royal. My sister teaches at Oxbridge, and my mother was a longtime Darien Public School employee too.
Visiting Royal tomorrow.
My name is Janet Fitzsimons. I went to Darien High School. My 2 kids went to Darien High School. I've been on the RTM for a very, very long time. And I was a substitute teacher in Darien schools and in Stanford schools.
Good evening, my name is Peter Marushak. I have 2 boys in Darien High School. I've been on this committee since 2020.
I'm Stephanie Rodasakis. I am the I'm the CDSP DEIB co-chair, and I'm the DEIB chair at Henley, and I have 2 kids at Henley in 1st and in 4th grade.
Good evening, Todd Maloof. New to this committee, new to the RTM. I live at 18 Intervale. I have a kindergartner at Holmes and a 2-year-old who will be joining her in a couple years.
Great. Okay. All right, so moving on, I think the next item I have is very broad, but I'm going to go ahead and read it outright because I have its discussion of the Darien Public Schools Fall 27 budget, including the role of the RTM Education Committee in the budget process, including the budget timeline, roles and responsibilities of the school administration, the Board of Ed, the RTM, our committee, and the Board of Finance. And if anybody wants to jump in with a question or a comment to get us started on this, I would welcome it. So.
Well, of course I have one. I'd just like to say, I was on the RTM for a while and on the budget committee. I'm on the education committee, then off for a long time, and part of which I was on the Board of Ed, and back on the education committee for the past, 5 years or something. And I just want to say that this is the first time in all the situations I've been in where a superintendent has come and wanted to meet with members of the RTM. And for me, that is really important because the system usually is, we get to the end of the budget program and then we say, well, next year we could find out this, this, and this. And so to be able to speak now and say, these are concerns, and not come back at the end and say, oh, by the way, we didn't like X, is really important to us, and I hope it's important to you. But thank you very much for deciding to come and meet with us. This is really great. And I might say when I've told other members on the RTM that you're coming, they say, what? So, it's great.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really interesting. I recently retired from New York State, so we don't have this political structure there. So it's incredible learning for me and getting a chance to understand how it all works in Connecticut, particularly here in Darien, and using the resources of all the people who have been doing this work for a long time is very helpful to me. So when we looked at redesigning, one of my charges when I got hired as the interim was to figure out a way to make the budget process more rational from the school district side of things. Everyone I met with over the summer, I met with about 200 folks from the community, shared that it was a disaster the last couple of years. And getting to know people and getting the opinions from all different stakeholder groups about this process that we put together was really helpful. And we met with RTM education leadership, we met with F&B leadership, we met with other elected officials from the town. So for me, it makes sense that I should be here getting to know all of you and talking with you about what we're working on. So I appreciate you making the time for me.
And this, I would say this committee is also an opportunity to spread the word early. Because too many times in our experience in recent years, issues have just gotten really heated and they come up in public hearings and it's almost an explosion.
Yeah.
Whereas this group is not an advocacy body, right, for the administration or the Board of Ed. However, as the ones investing more time in it, we can kind of get out into the community what's really happening as opposed to some of the rumors that go floating.
Right.
And in times, if this body, like in recent years, agrees with the administration's position, the Board of Ed's position, we kind of be a buffer, I know I'm on camera, but a buffer vis-a-vis the Board of Finance. So it's, you know, the Education Committee is more educated on education, and we can help spread the word around.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. Certainly one of the pieces, if you have children in schools, you may have noticed we're communicating a little differently than the district has in recent years. And that's a big part of our strategy, is so that people understand what is happening in the schools, why we're doing the things we're doing, and we will connect all of that through the budget process. So I did earn a new nickname. In my old job, in Rye, I was known as Dr. No Fun. And now I'm known as Dr. No Surprises, and I have a little plaque on my desk because, to me, the community should know what we're all about, and we should be talking about it publicly. And the budget process should be a process that is driven by what we're doing programmatically and what we're doing for kids, and then working our way into the conversation around the money. So that's something we've started already. So we presented a fiscal forecast about a month or so ago that outlined what our priorities are for the budget year ahead in the budget development process, what we saw as the major challenges that we'd be facing in the budget, fiscally and structurally, and then we went to work on the process, and we're actually coming to conclusion soon. And on January 8th, I'll be presenting my recommended budget to the board at a special meeting on a Thursday night.
Could I ask if it's possible, I know you're communicating a lot of information to the parents in town, and for those of us that are trying to follow what's going on and don't have children in the schools, is there a way that we could receive that information?
Yes. I hope there's a way you could do it without getting my snow day calls, although you might have enjoyed today. Anyone can, I believe that anyone in the community can sign up for our mailing list. And so if you just call my office and speak with Cass Philpott, or email the office, or call me, we'll figure out how to get you on that. We are posting everything on the website. That is a new feature. So the communications we send out are all being posted on the website. So there is one of our new initiatives is the community update that goes every Friday at 2 o'clock. And when it goes out to the community, it's posted on the website. So when you go onto the landing page, it says Superintendent's Community Update, and it has all of them from the beginning of the year to the current issue. Same thing with our monthly Darien Difference, but you can sign up and Cass can make sure you get your email on there to get those.
And what is the proper website?
RyeSchools.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jan, I'll blast it to everyone.
Yeah, I can put it in the minutes.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it will be helpful for us to all have that information.
Yeah, and that's something, we redesigned the website this year and launched it in August. And the plan is to make it as functional as possible with current information, helpful information for families and community members, and we keep pushing those things out. If you're on Instagram, we also have an Instagram name, site, handle, Darien Schools, Darien Public Schools _CT. But if you punch in Darien Public Schools, you'll find us. I'm not particularly good at Instagram, so.
Peter.
So the question was also about our role, right? Other than advocacy, which I agree with, and buffering, is it's an interesting role, right? Because this is a system of checks and balances, and Board of Education proposes budget to Board of Finance, who proposes it to us. Eventually, we appropriate the funds, so the buck stops really at RTM, right? So you guys have to persuade us that this is the right way to spend taxpayer funds. And so we don't, on the other hand, we don't have a line item veto, so we depend on the other bodies, on Board of Education specifically, and on the administration to come up with something sensible. But, you know, we do have this nuclear option that I call nuclear option, because the system is as such that we cannot choose what the budget should be, even though we have an opinion on it, whether instead of proposed Board of Finance 2% increase, we believe that the kids deserve more, and there is good programs that you suggest maybe plus 4%, but we cannot say that. We can either say it's plus 2 or it's 0, right? So the nuclear option is there, and so, but I guess the three lenses that I look through when I evaluate, you know, the proposed budget to me is safety, efficiency, and academic rigor, right? And, you know, we can go into all these, what I think about it, but that's really the three lenses. I mean, you know, safety took us 10 years to put together the SROs into our schools, 10 years to the day from the Sandy Hook tragedy. So, and I saw some of the initiatives that you have here in the new budget. There's more on safety, and, you know, don't wait for it. This is a community that is willing to spend money on safety. Efficiency, I think a lot of efficiency has been done. Mr. Sini has done a lot with the finance subcommittee. There's more, right? I know we're talking about the transportation, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other initiatives. One that I'm interested in as far as efficiency is special education, and I know there's going to be a deeper dive during the budget process about it, but Darien has more kids as a percentage of student body, dramatically more kids as a part of special education than other districts. We should be proud of it, but we also should question whether this is reasonable or not. This is a big part of our budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then third one is academic rigor. You know, we're not an IMG sports academy, right? I really appreciated the speech that I heard at State of Town from Mr. and Mrs. Nelson about all the achievements and, you know, having measurable outcomes that she clearly quoted: SAT scores, AP exams, biliteracy, STEM, and all these things. That's what I personally look at when I evaluate the budget. So these are sort of the three lenses that help me.
Thank you.
Anyone want to elaborate on what Peter had to say?
Usually it doesn't make any sense.
No, I was saying, no, please, no, I was gonna, let me just say one more thing about Peter, because I feel like I don't want to, I think that we have all hammered a lot about the fact that at the end of this process, we can either vote yes or no. And there have been, you know, I know we've talked about, I think everyone's talked about the.
Leslie, you gotta speak up a little, I'm sorry.
So, sorry, my apologies. There have been times when we, you know, kind of held our nose and voted yes to a budget that we felt might not have been, you know, as supportive as we wanted it to be. And I don't mean to speak, you know, for everyone, but I think that generally that was the opinion of our committee. And I think that, you know, we've had some questions about, you know, what really happens at the end of the process if, you know, if there's another situation where, let's just say a budget gets slashed and, you know, we have to make a final call. Like if, you know, we keep hearing that, you know, at the end of that process, if we voted no, the budget would not go back for discussion. It would revert to the prior fiscal year budget, which would of course be a punishment to the district. And hence why at least not in my experience, there's never been a no vote. So I think one of our questions was, you know, maybe we would want to discuss just what is the process at that point. You know, we don't have a clear answer on how that works.
Well, I will definitely have to get back to you on that answer. This is my first time through the process. So what I do know is certainly the priorities that Peter shared line up very well with the priorities that we have taken in the budget development process. And what I presented to the community in that fiscal forecast is the standards that we are using as we build this budget proposal. And I would say that pretty much all of those comments that you made, Peter, are a part of those operating standards that we're building. We also know that you have to start from somewhere. So you have to start from enrollment, program, things like transportation, and sort of build from there. But to me, if you are true to a process that is grounded in program, you will end up in a place that is based on what the children need and what the programs need to be successful. And then our job, my job, is to tell that story to the community, to the RTM, to the Board of Finance, so that people understand what we're trying to do and why we need what we need to do that. And that's what our focus is on the new budget development process and the way we're going to present it out. So my understanding from what I've seen is the budget has been presented and then just sort of discussed over a series of meetings, different kinds of meetings that are actually not on the calendar anymore, at cut night, things like that.
Right.
So what you'll see is the comprehensive budget proposal on January 8th, which will speak to the entire budget, any additions, any subtractions, any changes, any new programs, any programs that we're modifying, significant needs, all of that with the number that is going to say what my recommendation is. And then following the January 8th meeting and the opportunity for discussion with the board and discussion with anyone from the community that comes through the public comment portion of the meeting. And then the 3 successive meetings are focused on going deeper into the particular areas. So the first meeting after that, I believe it's curriculum and schools that will be presenting.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amy Fedigan will present curriculum instruction assessment and the school budgets. The following meeting, I believe it's Dr. Klein will present special education, and Chris Manfredonia will present physical education. Same structure, presented out, program, dollars, changes, and then questions and discussion. And then the third budget presentation night will be Rich Rudel presenting the operating budget to the community. Same process, conversation, discussion, questions. Then we'll come back after those 4 nights of presentations, including mine, and have on February 3rd, I believe February 3rd is the public hearing, when people can come and speak to the budget. And then on February 5th, if there are any changes or modifications from the public hearing, from all the discourse, then I'll present a revised budget or a final budget proposal to the board for their adoption. So we believe that this can be a very positive process and a very engaging process for anyone who's interested.
When you present that initial proposal, will you have already received guidance from the Board of Finance? Or is this a clean proposal?
It's a clean proposal.
That's good to hear.
Can you give us an example of what the disasters were that you alluded to in the past?
I've been told, and disasters were quotes, that wasn't my word, that things were raised for being cut on a night that no one knew they were coming, and things that were last minute additions to the budget, like the night before or the night of budget adoption, those kinds of things. And,
Some of us might have thought that was the norm.
You did receive accurate information.
Yes.
We all remember that night.
Yeah, we're going to try and avoid those kinds of nights in this process this year, for sure.
Not to stay with the negative theme, but you mentioned discourse. Do you have any sort of inkling on what, if there is any potential objections on the proposed budget? Like, are you anticipating any?
I don't
specific?
anticipate any. It's a reasonable budget. It's good for our kids. It's good for the community, and it's fiscally responsible. So I come from a world of a tax cap. So thinking about how to navigate a budget process after living in a 2% tax cap for 8 years, building budgets as a superintendent is, a tax cap where we owned our own debt. As a school district, we had to calculate the debt service into our budget, where we had to go to a public referendum for approval for everything. So I come in with a pretty different mindset. So it's communicating it clearly and being rational in the process in terms of developing things that make sense financially and programmatically is kind of how I've been raised in this world of budgeting.
Makes too much sense.
Just following on Peter's list, just out of curiosity, is the the idea of a later school day start? Is that something under
So,
consideration?
I've actually talked about this publicly. We have been in conversations with the town to explore the concept of a bus depot. And while we're trying to wrap up that conversation, the next conversation will be looking at whether or not and doing a study on whether or not it's feasible to have a later start. So at some point, yes, we will be looking at that.
We're increasingly becoming an island, starting as early as we do. And what a lot of people who are part of the process may not know, but as a parent of a high schooler, so many clubs meet before school. In a school district, it meets an hour before everybody else. So we have to have kids at school at 7 a.m. And you know, high schoolers, they don't go to bed at 9. Right? So the scientists are all on the same side. That later is better the older you get. The irony is we have the little kids going in late
Yeah.
when they're up at 5:30. And the older kids going in early and they need to sleep. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that.
Following up on your question, and you mentioned that you're in conversations with the town about a bus depot. Can you mention or give us any information about how that conversation is going and what kind of timeline there might be, or what's going into the decision-making process? Of course, I wonder, where in town would you?
Well, that's the biggest stumbling block. That's the whole challenge to it, is finding a location that can have a bus garage and a building and a fueling station and space for enough buses and drivers and their cars is the real challenge. So we have literally been sitting there with Google Earth on the screen, looking at lots of different properties that are town-owned properties, or properties that may be for sale, and I'm not sure it's something that will be possible. It is a very challenging thing to try and figure out.
Be great use of Great Island right away.
I am not putting that out.
Is it feasible to think about finding space in an adjoining town?
That's been part of our conversation as well. It's not proving to be particularly fruitful, but that's a conversation we're having. There are two neighboring school districts that are having challenges with bus storage right now, Westport and Greenwich. And if you've seen it in the news, Greenwich is parking buses on their fields and at multiple schools because, they're in a much worse transportation situation. Their vendor, they had to cut ties with their vendor because of astronomical rate increases. And that's what we're trying to avoid by figuring out if there's any way of finding a bus depot, is whether or not we can avoid, because right now there is only one company that's willing to bid on our bus contract. So that you all are smart people, you know what that means.
There are towns in the country that charge the students who use the bus, and we might have fewer buses. I don't know if this ties in particularly, but somewhat. I don't think anyone in Connecticut does that. I'm not
Yeah, there
aware.
might be, that would be an interesting research project. There might be legislation around that.
Because there are an awful lot of people lined up to pick up children at the schools that buses are empty.
Yeah, I know in New York, you couldn't do that by state law, but.
Peter, you were gonna say.
Yeah, I just had you talked about, it was interesting, you mentioned you live within the 2% gap. So now, we paid 5% increase on our taxes. We represent taxpayers. A lot of us have kids in the school or some that have been related to the school system, but reality is there's 60% of people here who don't have kids in the system, although their house values are related to the quality of the system, right? So they're supportive of this. But I guess, we have less than or 3% inflation, and unless we want to increase our taxes as a percentage of our net worth, long term, we need to stay somewhere around there, in my opinion. And this teacher's contract, that effectively means 1.5% increase when we take the teacher's turnover and the savings from the insurance into account, gives us flexibility to build programs within the 3% long-term gap. So I know this is going to be higher this year, but it's something to think about that, know, that the average person, average family, average household pays $20,000 in real estate taxes in this town, right? So 5% is a lot, a lot different than 3%. So.
But just, I almost always agree with Peter, but one slight difference is we still need, it's nice to have fresh eyes to see if our starting point is where we want it, right? Because that 3% number, totally, everyone who pays taxes would agree, but it assumes we're comfortable with the baseline.
Yeah.
And that's why new eyes, fresh eyes are great. And is the baseline good enough?
Yeah,
That's-
and I will say that we do have particular challenges because healthcare costs are part of the mix, and healthcare costs have been increasing, 10+%
Right.
every year. That's a big part of our budget. Transportation costs have been increasing every single year. So while inflation may be at a certain number, there are aspects that are pretty big components of our budget that are way beyond inflation. But that's something we have to consider when we're putting the whole package together.
I just wanted to comment on something you said too, Peter, about the number, percentage of people in town that have children in the schools and those of us that don't. And I always hear about, well, people who don't have kids in the school don't want to pay for it and that kind of thing. And I would just like to say, from my standpoint, my property values are where they are
I get it.
because of the fact, in part, because we have good schools. And I know that if I decide to sell my house, it's not unlikely that the person that wants to buy my house will want to buy my house at the price I want to set because of the schools. So I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of us are here. Of course, I support education generally, but there is a value to having a really good school system for those of us who have invested in the town in different ways.
Totally agree.
I think it's the same as you can't have an opinion on leashes if you don't own the dog.
I don't hear you, Jerry.
I agree, Janet.
We went to high school together.
Yeah. You can't have an opinion on what?
On
Leashes.
leashes.
Oh, leashes.
That was a
Having a dog
major
on leashes
problem
when you don't
I
have
years
dogs.
ago.
Wise choice.
Very much debated.
Is there anyone that has a comment or a question for Dr. Byrne before we keep moving along with the agenda? I don't want to skip over anybody because this is a nice opportunity for us to be together with Dr. Byrne. Yes.
Is there any discussion about using the Chromebooks and the tablets a little less in the elementary school age in particular? Like, for example, at our house, we don't play on the iPad. Like, they watch TV, but we don't play on a computer or a tablet. But at school, they're doing that like a lot of the day, and they are learning how to research and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily want them to be on those devices more than they are at our own house. You know, like, I really like how this year we have paper homework sheets. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can, write your answers, and we're not doing it on an iPad at home.
So I would say that I as I travel around, I visit classrooms in schools pretty much every week, hitting a couple of different schools. Tomorrow I'm at Royal, Friday I was at Tokenie, Thursday I was at Oxbridge, and I get to walk around a lot. I haven't seen a ton of elementary kids on the Chromebooks. I've seen them on during WIN period. So WIN is a block of time in the school day. If you have little kids in school now, elementary kids, you know what that is. But it's a block when teachers pull small groups for specialized instruction. Some kids get services, some kids go to instrumental music, and some kids do independent work or enrichment work. And that's a place where I've seen Chromebook usage more than I'd like. What I asked, instead of just being the guy that shows up and says, we're doing it this way now, is we're due a new plan, new technology plan. So I've asked, before the technology plan is developed, that the District Technology Committee takes a real careful look at the use of Chromebooks and iPads in K through 2. To think about how we're using them, when we're using them, is it too much, is it not enough, is it the right kind of applications, and we've actually done the analysis of what kids are using through our budget development process. So when the tech folks came for our budget development meetings, they had to bring the user, the logon information and the user reports for all of the technology applications we subscribe to. And so that's part of a project they're working on right now. Because I have to make budget decisions about purchasing devices too, because they're on a replacement cycle. And I really want to know that information about K-2 usage before we start committing to another tranche of Chromebooks, if we don't need them, if it's not the right thing for our kids. So that's something that's happening right now. And we'll have some answers and clarity before the end of the school year.
Because we're like, my oldest is in 3rd grade now, but my friends with 5th graders, they bring their Chromebooks home, even if they don't have homework or an assignment, and it's just inviting them to like chat with each other.
Yeah, the tech usage is part of the whole
Yeah.
planning process with the committee.
Yeah, good.
Are state tests on computers?
Yes,
Mhm.
so 4th and 5th grade, they're 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we will still need to have Chromebooks for kids to take state exams. But we have to look at the usage across the whole
Yeah.
system, across the levels.
Jessica, are you gonna say something? No? Okay. Sorry. Anyone else?
I think mine's more of a general question, and this is, you don't have to answer now, Dr. Byrne, but I just think kind of on what everybody else shared about where we feel the constraints or, can feel limited in the budget process. I guess throughout, and I guess you can't answer until we go through it, but what is the most meaningful way we can provide feedback to you in terms of our committee? We certainly don't want to undermine the process, and we don't want to be left out of the process entirely, right? And that's kind of, and so I understand you may not be able to answer that, never
No,
go through it, but.
I think, watching the meetings and sending your feedback in and your
Yeah.
questions or coming and stepping up to the podium
Yeah.
is the best possible way. In Rye, I always had a feedback at ryeschools.org email address, and we started it during the budget process there, and it was always, that's like the easiest email to ever remember, and people used it, and it was helpful.
And that's what we should encourage friends and neighbors to do as well, right? Not just the function of this committee,
Yeah.
but anybody who comes to us and.
Anybody that's
Yeah.
interested, yeah.
Wonderful.
In speaking to the communities thus far, what have the opposite theme of what I was asking the first question, like what's some of the positive things that they're seeing
Oh, I mean, there's so many
or wanting to
positives.
see?
Yeah.
Well, people want to see programs continue, number one. People would like to see us figure out a way to continue the path of improving our literacy instruction. The district made a major commitment to that through the reading and writing work in elementary school. People love the programming at the high school and asking us to always look at ways to bring new programming and potentially swap out things that aren't as appealing or interesting to kids anymore. But I mean, the feedback on the system I've gotten since I showed up has been incredibly positive. What people have asked me to do from a communication standpoint is to share those things so that people know what's going on, which is why we've been communicating to the level that we have. Which, spoiler alert, I said this in my fiscal forecast, I've included an allocation for either a communications position or an allocation to contract with a communications professional. That is a very common position in school districts, and right now it's me and my assistant Cass who are doing that, and I would much rather, I enjoy the communication piece, but it is not an efficient use of my time when I can be in schools really focused on the programming and improving those kinds of things in the schools. But communicating all the good things that are happening has been a lot of fun, because learning what our kids are doing and sharing that with the community has been great.
It's great to hear that too, you're constantly in the schools.
Yeah.
That's one of my questions I didn't want to ask, but glad that.
No, I'm there. I'm reading in Mrs. Mason's class tomorrow at Royal. So. Do you have anyone at Mrs. Mason's class?
No.
All right.
She's great. She's
That name has been around for a long
yes,
time.
she's seasoned pro. I've only good things. Peter?
Maybe just one view generally in how you're thinking about this. You know, we have a flat enrollment, right, next couple of years. It's very little enrollment over the next 10 years, and especially the next 2 years is actually down, anticipated down, right? So what I at least look at, and I think we discuss it here, is always the number of administrators to teachers, and how much we invest in administration, and because, you know, as I believe that the teachers, obviously you too, from what I've listened to, and your cabinet too, is, you know, they obviously on the front line, they know the kids the most, right? So some of these programs that you are suggesting, and actually the MTSS sounds very interesting because it could lower the special ed, I have a feeling, because you know, it's a comprehensive system to follow the kid throughout his pattern. But reality is, we want to invest in people in front of the kids, right? We don't need, you know, the Board of Education sort of, and I say ivory tower, I know it's not, and I know Dr. Fettigan has a lot of great ideas, and he had this great brain trust of smart people, but the teachers have masters, they have doctorates, right? They know what they're doing, they know how to teach, create a collaborative environment around their sharing their, you know, experiences is very important. You know, so I appreciate the communication director, and maybe it's common, you know, and you know, that's gonna come, but obviously, you know, I just, when I see that there's more people, more FTEs coming that are not facing.
Well, we also are looking both ways, so when we need to reduce FTEs, we need to reduce FTEs, so that, we're, you know, you can't just look at adding things all the time.
Right.
So it's always looking at where do you not need things anymore, and making those tough decisions as part of the process.
One more thing, you know, just from my experience as we share here, when I talk to teachers, and I've been in this community for almost, you know, 20 years, so I have a bunch of teachers in the system, is the involvement of parents is, on a personal basis, is overwhelming for these teachers. The involvement of parents, right? Johnny missed his homework, how come he got a C, right? So running some kind of interference, and I know the directors or the department heads are supposed to do that, but, you know, let the teachers teach and help the kids, right? There will be C's. I know Harvard has 90% people with A's. That's not proper. Kids in San Diego State need, you know, remediation math. Because they don't know how to count on 8th-level grade. We need to prepare these kids rigorously academically, right? So you know, investment in teachers, that's sort of my message.
I agree.
I would like to go back to comment on what you just raised about the communication. You may guess from what I asked before about how do I get communication. I think that it is so important for the whole community to get the communication in as many ways as possible. We no longer have a newspaper in Darien.
Yeah.
We used to have a newspaper that was delivered to everybody, and in it there were summaries of the Board of Ed things, there were quotes from people. You could follow things a little bit more than you can. Now you can't follow it at all unless you watch Channel 79. But to know that we can get a viewpoint communicated from what is actually going on here and not the overview is, I think, really important, and I think that there would be a lot more interest.
Yeah.
I'm not talking just about support, but interest in education, which would have the net effect of supporting it. But I think as much as we can involve people in the community about education in general in Darien, is a good thing, and I think it would be helpful for them to know. A very quick example was at one of your meetings, someone from the high school said that a particular writing course was not getting a big draw, and now they were going to do a writing course that had to do with satire and stuff. Yeah. And I've told people that story, and the fact that one wasn't working and you're replacing it with something that kids are really good at, and it's the replacement course is so creative, and I think that that's the kind of thing, it's not just writing 101 anymore.
Right.
And I think the more you can get that information out where people can say, whoa, the better off the whole community will be.
I agree wholeheartedly,
I
which is
thought you
why
would.
I've reached out to lots of organizations to try and get in front of folks and talk to them. And that's
Yeah.
something I've always done in my career, because not everybody can make it to a Board of Education meeting. Not everybody wants to watch a Board of Education meeting. But, you know, I've been connected with the Darien Men's Association and talked about going to visit there. I've been a frequent attendee of Lions and Rotary clubs in my
That's great.
past, and we'll get to them as well. So, you know, trying to get around to the whole community so that they know the guy that's actually sitting in that office and feel comfortable enough to reach out when they have a question. But we also really need to do a good job communicating things out to the whole community.
Yeah,
So we're
what's
working
going
on
this
that.
week, yeah.
Could you remind us what the policy is at each school for telephones?
There are no telephones in schools. Well, elementary school, no telephones at all.
Apparently doesn't apply to the couldn't ask for better timing.
You just earned a detention. Middle school, no cell phones. They can't have them out. They can't have them in school.
I mean, do they leave them?
In the backpack, right?
They leave them in the backpacks, or they don't take them at all.
Because I assume they all have them, so.
I would assume so too. And in the high school, they have pouches.
Yes, we're very aware of pouches.
Yes, it was a
Committee
big
not in
debate.
favor of them.
Well, they keep the phones away all day long, you know, but they have pouches, and seniors are allowed to use them in the senior section, but I've yet to actually see a senior using a phone in the senior section when I've been there.
Where's
So,
the senior section?
in the senior section of the cafeteria, there's a small section where they,
I've
I've actually sat down and eaten lunch with seniors and never seen a phone, so.
All right.
It definitely is working. The cafeteria is louder at the high school than anyone can remember it, because kids are talking, they're playing board games. I actually gave advice and was thanked publicly the other day by the Fairfield superintendent, because I said to him, I said, Mike, make sure you buy lots of board games, because we didn't have enough initially and went out and bought more. And he took my advice and ordered lots of board games for his high school cafeteria, so
That's
we've seen
great.
some real positive changes.
Good.
On that same line, what difference is happening with Apple Watches? I mean, can't kids get calls, see things? How does that line up?
Well, if they do, they get in trouble for
Yes, they
it.
can.
So, you know, it's not an issue that's been significant for
Okay.
us at all. You know, I'd say don't buy them. You know, that would be my advice. And I know it's not easy. My daughter was one of the first Apple generation kids, or the iPhone generation kids. I mean, she had a plain old boring flip phone when she was in high school. And it wasn't until her junior year that we broke down and bought like the oldest iPhone that was on the market at the time. And, you know, it just changed everything, the connectivity. But if you have younger kids and you haven't gotten them a device yet, just don't.
So where do middle school children put their phones?
They either don't have them in school at all, or they're stowed away in their bags and they don't come out. So we haven't had any issues at the middle school with the phones, thankfully. The only issues we have with phones are issues of things that happen outside of school that spill over with videos and things like that that get kids into trouble. So, you know, and unfortunately we have to clean it up when they come to school on Monday. But it's just a part of our world that we've had for a long time now.
I'll just say, my high school junior complained nonstop before the policy was implemented. It's like no other topic came up in the house.
And you haven't heard a thing
Not a
since the
word.
second week of school.
Not a word.
They complained about it the second week of school, and now we have kids that they don't want to use the pouches at all, so they just hand over their phone, and there's a little cart that they have at the front door. There are kids that just put them on the little wooden carrier at the front door of the high school, and they pick them up at the end of the
We
day.
paid all that to get.
Well, the pouches are being used. You would appreciate that the principal and the assistant principals all dressed up as yonder pouches for Halloween. And the guy, the counseling department the counseling department were dressed up as yonder patches as well.
That's awesome.
So tune in for next year.
We've kind of moved into the next item, which is basically just, topics related to the public schools that aren't budget related, and I think we've covered a lot of that, but I had made a note when we were prepping for the meeting tonight to say, I know that we're coming up on a new strategic plan, and if you are looking for a member of this committee to help, I don't know if you have volunteers or if you have a team of people that are doing that, let us know and we could maybe provide you with
That'd be great.
a volunteer.
Yeah, we are working on the process right now. I believe it's in February that we'll be presenting out what the strategic planning process will be.
Okay.
So we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And, no pressure. I think we supplied someone last time. I think it was helpful for the committee to kind of have a little insight on what was going on. So, but, if you would like a volunteer, let us know.
Sure. Thank you.
Now, I think everything else we have to talk about is we can get through quickly. But did I miss anybody who had questions for Dr. Bunn? Okay. I'm going to very quickly bring up item 6, which is the facilities tour on December 6th, which Jan and I went to. We saw all the capital budget items, and I'm just going to quickly run through it, unless you want to do it, Jan.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
The facilities tour that we went to
on
December 6th.
Yeah, well, I missed one of the facilities. But I did go to Henley and I did go to Holmes, and then I had to leave. But it was so neat to see what has happened with the money that has been put up by the town to make these improvements. And it's exciting for me to see the way things are going to change for the way kids use things. I mean, there's little silly things that weren't silly to me, like the new libraries. Instead of having all the books on shelves going this way, they're kind of in, not bins, but you can just flip through them this way. You don't have to go to the shelf and know what it is. So you can see as a kid, as a second grader, you can kind of flip through and see what you want. You can take it out and put it back. And to me, that whole idea makes reading much more accessible and lines up with the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of literacy. It makes it more of an interest than you have to do this. The new spaces are really wonderful, and the surprise to me was the little circular space, pond space at Henley School with seating all the way around it, and just all these spaces in the schools that provide kids with opportunities to be in a different kind of space than just a classroom. And I think that sends a good message about the fact that education isn't just like this. And so I was really excited, happy to see it, and here's where the music is, and here's where this is, and all the different ways that things are integrated instead of being, that's just the music room and that's all you can do over there. I just really like to see that it's become, in my view, from what I saw with my children and grandchildren I'm seeing now, it's a greater feeling of understanding education as a whole. I don't know if that's...
No, I would say for sure. I agree. We didn't, HHR, like all the new improvements on the buildings are stunning, and I was excited to see them. I hadn't been inside the buildings. But I will say, just to stay a little bit on point, the HHR project is not going to be part of the capital budget for this coming, but we got the benefit of seeing all the improvements while we were looking at the capital budget items, which were for Henley and Holmes and Royal. It was basically kind of the same things. Everyone's getting a school replacement radio. They're all getting bollards for different areas. Like those big giant. They make them look nice, but so that they protect like a picnic area or the entrance, so the kids who are playing, so cars can't drive. Thank you. So cars can't drive through. So it's a protective device. Couple are getting new gym floors. And I think
Paving.
asphalt.
Lots of paving.
Yeah, asphalt is the highlight because we're getting the center over at the high school, also asphalt at Henley. asphalt at Holmes and at Royal. And then the other big highlight is a generator transfer switch at the central office. So that was, but that was the big, I think those were the big items that we talked
And the
about.
last
truck.
portable lady.
Yeah, that's right.
Finally.
That's
Yeah,
right.
One final portable.
Yeah.
Any questions about the facilities tour and the capital budget items?
Thank you for the real-time photos.
Oh,
of the
you're so
storage. That
welcome.
was very helpful.
You're so welcome.
I had asked Liza for, my sister is at Oxridge and she teaches in the special ed department and she's also a Darien resident, has her own kids, but she says she has no storage at Oxridge. Her classroom,
Oh,
and as a result, and as you can imagine in special ed, they have
Yeah.
a ton of things. There's no storage in those classrooms. So she said it's gotten so bad that the teachers at Ox are storing in the hallways and the custodian has been involved. And so she said, please, whoever is going through, make sure with HHR, obviously Ox is a whole separate thing, but with HHR, make sure they're considering teacher storage.
Yeah.
Because she said, I don't think teachers were really consulted about that, so.
A
But
little
Liza-
concerning since the school's brand new.
I think it's possible, and I don't know, that maybe some of those rooms are maybe not originally designed for teacher use. And there's, maybe it's over-programmed possibly, and so there's rooms being used that weren't meant for that. Again, I don't know,
No,
I'm
that's,
guessing.
we're at absolute
Yeah.
capacity at Oxridge, and we've turned rooms that weren't meant to be instructional rooms into instructional rooms. So that could be a piece of it.
Do they have the space to construct even some form of creative space to, not hallways?
No. Yeah, we have to figure out our placement of programs and what opportunities we have across the district. Because if we continue to grow, both programs are just about at capacity there right now, the ELP program at Oxridge. So that's something we have to watch carefully.
The storage is gorgeous in the new buildings, for what it's worth, it's really nice.
how is the Middlesex, going to be in the budget this year? I know there's been a lot of conversation about an auditorium, and what is the timing on the planning for Middlesex? And is that gonna be discussed at all in this budget cycle?
No, that actually is not part of this budget cycle.
Right.
It's part of the current budget in doing the facilities study. But there's nothing in the capital budget for Middlesex. The next step, this Thursday, I believe, the board's facilities committee is actually going to have a discussion as a follow-up to the presentation of the facilities study that was at the last board meeting. So the facilities committee will need to make a decision of recommending to the board that we move forward creating what are called the ed specs, the educational specifications. And once the educational specifications are finalized, they would be brought to the Board of Ed to adopt them. Once the Board of Education adopts the educational specifications and they wish to move forward, they would then request a building committee from the town. And then it would go from there. So, you know, what was discussed at the meeting and the study that was done is very conceptual. So there's been no design work yet. You know, they proposed, we know based on the meetings and conversations we've had, you could use about 12 classrooms. Our recommendation is do them as science labs. We know the auditorium is really small and needs a lot of work there. So one option is doing the work and including an auditorium in it. And they said, depending on the size that you choose, you know, there would be a lot of questions. But the next step would be the ed specifications. And then from there, once the board adopts those are given to the building committee to go out and design the school. So it's a few years out.
So what is the timing on the ed specs? Are you expecting that to be this year, next year?
So we're gonna discuss that on Thursday, but my expectation would be that we'd have ed specs in the spring sometime, and be able to go to the next step in discussing it further with the town.
But just out of curiosity, didn't John Zagroski, in talking about the budget, don't we have in the budget for the next 10 years, he's talking about taking on more debt for renovations to both the middle school. My kids don't go to the public school, so I don't really know what state they're in, but given that enrollment is flat, I mean, it just sounds like a lot of, I don't know, I mean, I'm just curious, like, because it's middle school and high school renovations, is that what I understand?
He
Not at
talked
the same
about the
time.
middle school.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Not at the same time.
No, I know
Yeah.
that, but I'm talking about, he was giving us a 10-year
Yeah.
frame,
Yes,
time
yes.
frame, so.
Yeah, and he had a little more information about the middle school because the architects have given us sort of very rough estimates
Okay.
of what they think the cost would be. It's really, most of the work is on systems in the school.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so, systems in the school and classrooms, because the middle school is actually designed for 900 kids. It's over 1,100 now, and we're using spaces that have no business being educational spaces. So that's a piece of it, but there are roofs, a lot of HVAC work,
Okay.
things like that. And for the high school, that at some point down the road, we're going to need to do a study of that facility as it gets, I think it's 20-plus years old at this point. And so it's really, you end up looking at the systems first because things don't last forever. But the buildings themselves, the bones of the buildings are just fine.
Okay.
It's just a matter of the space we have, the space we need, and whether or not the systems are current and up to date.
Okay.
The meeting, the Board of Ed meeting where the architects gave their presentation is really interesting and fun to watch, and the materials where they show the different options is very, very cool. So if you haven't seen it, take a look. It's actually one of the meetings that I, had fun watching, so, nothing new. More fun watching, thank you. Okay, all right. My next item here is just to talk about upcoming meeting dates and upcoming budget meetings, and Dr. Byrne did a really thorough job of going over what's coming up. It all starts on, January 8th, and then, we've got meetings all through the month of January and at the beginning of February. And just a note for our committee, I put a bunch of meetings on the calendar in January. I don't know that we're gonna need every single one of those meetings, but I would rather cancel a meeting and have flexibility with what we can discuss than have to put a special meeting on the calendar. So, and we can also discuss, because I know that's a lot of time away from jobs, families, kids, so if we need to do a remote meeting to jam in there, just so we can discuss something before we say, provide feedback to Dr. Byrne and the board, we can do that too if that's preferable. So this can be fluid for the purposes of our committee and when we're meeting. But January 8th, we'll get our budget books and the budget will be posted online, and then Dr. Byrne will give us the presentation, so.
Are we picking up the budget books at the office again?
I think so, and I did order one extra hard copy because I figured someone would have forgotten to get back to me. So I did order one extra. So, and then for folks that are, using it online, everything is available online, so. Is there anything else before we have a motion to adjourn? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. I see a second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.